Imagine like a celebrated historical figure, a revolutionary who sacrifices absolutely everything, even their own life, just to save a city and etch their name into the history books forever.
Right, someone with total dedication to a legacy.
Exactly. But now, imagine a notorious arsonist who burns a city to the ground, fully aware they'll be caught, but they do it just to make sure they are written about in those exact same history books.
Oh, wow. That is a stark contrast.
Right. But what if I told you that, fundamentally, underneath all those vastly different moral outcomes, both of those people are running on the exact same psychological operating system?
I mean, that's a pretty wild premise to start with.
It really is. And I mean, you interact with technology every single day. You know that the invisible software running in the background of your smartphone dictates every single thing it can and cannot do.
Yeah, you never see it, but it's controlling the battery, the apps, everything.
Exactly. It filters your entire experience of the digital world. But we rarely, if ever, stop to consider the operating system running quietly in the background of our own minds.
Which is exactly what we're getting into today.
Yes. Today, we are bringing you a deep dive into an essay written by Siga Feng back in 2012. It's titled Analysis of 8 Major Life Views and the Life View of Changyuan Celestials.
It's a really fascinating text.
It is. And our mission today is to essentially hand you a decoder ring for human behavior. We are going to explore the fundamental perspectives that drive why people do, what they value, and how they define their life's purpose. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the smartphone operating system analogy you just used is actually incredibly precise here, because a life view, at least as it's defined in this text, isn't just a mood.
Right, it's not like waking up on the wrong side of the bed.
Exactly. It's not some temporary phase of existential dread you go through in your 20s. It's a fundamental attitude about the value, meaning, purpose, and the chosen path to achieve those purposes.
It's the bedrock.
It is. And what's fascinating here is how categorizing these views allows us to step back and objectively analyze the human experience. If you can identify the software someone is running, suddenly their totally chaotic behavior becomes entirely predictable.
Okay, so let's get into the actual software. We're going to start with the most tangible pursuits, the most physical, grounded operating systems. The text calls these View 1 and View 2.
Right, so view 1 is the materialistic or wealth view. And for a mind running the software, life is entirely about maximizing material gains.
So it's just pure accumulation.
Completely. Anything unprofitable is essentially intangible to them. People with this view will use literally any means necessary to acquire wealth.
There are some pretty blunt quotes in the text about this, right?
Oh yeah, Zui Feng uses quotes like, people die for wealth, birds die for food, and, the classic money makes the world go round.
Wow. Okay, so that's View 1. But then right next to it, we have View 2, which is the physiological or hedonistic view. And the focus here is on basic physiological desires.
Yeah, we're talking food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and sex.
The text actually has a great quote for this one, too. Traveling 1,000 miles for an official position is all for good food and clothing.
Which perfectly sums it up. The power doesn't matter, just the perks.
But wait, so View 2 is essentially the ultimate treat-yourself luxury lifestyle, whereas View 1 is just pure, relentless hustle culture.
That is a great way to put it.
Because I'm trying to figure out what happens when the money is actually made and the food is eaten. Like, what's the end game for these two?
Well, if we connect this to the broader picture, for view 1, the accumulation itself is the goal. They evaluate relationships, learning, literally everything, solely on its financial return.
So they might have millions but refuse to spend it because losing a dollar hurts their high score.
Precisely. But for view 2, the consumption and the sheer quality of physical life is the absolute pinnacle. But the key takeaway is that both of these views are completely tethered to the physical realm.
Okay, but the physical realm has limits. You can only eat so much, you can only buy so many houses. So what happens when physical needs aren't the primary driver anymore?
That's when the focus has to turn inward to the ego, moving from physical consumption to psychological validation.
Which brings us to the psychological realm.
Mm.
Views 3 and 4. View 3 is the honor or reputation view.
Right. People running the software highly value personal integrity and public recognition.
They want the legacy. They want to be remembered for thousands of years.
Exactly. There's a proverb in the text. A wild goose leaves a voice, a person leaves a name. To them, it's better to die with honor than to live without it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. View 3 sounds noble at first, but the text explicitly says they are willing to be remembered for good or ill.
Yes, that is a crucial distinction.
So wait, going back to my intro, A notorious villain and a celebrated hero might actually be running on the exact same operating system.
They absolutely are. Because for View 3, public image and glorifying ancestors completely surpass day-to-day morality. The metric is permanence, not goodness.
That is kind of terrifying, honestly.
It is, and it transitions us right into View 4, the egocentric view. This is radical self-centeredness.
Oh, this is the I am the main character syndrome on steroids.
Exactly. For them, the sun is the center of the universe, and the self is the center of human society. The text quotes mantras like, "All is me, and I am all, and I am my own God."
I mean, if you internalize the universe entirely like that, every single decision you make is purely based on self-interest.
Right, because they view themselves as their own God. There's no external authority to answer to.
But eventually, these massive egos have to interact with the actual universe, which brings us to the locus of control, views 5 and 6.
This is where we see a really dramatic clash. It's the difference between surrendering all control and claiming absolute control.
Let's start with view 5, the fatalistic view. This is the ultimate surrender, right?
Yeah, they believe everything is a predestined cosmic drama. Humans are just mere chess pieces on the greatest creator's chessboard.
So nothing is really your fault.
Exactly. The quote Shufeng uses is, "There is a time for everything. Don't force anything when it's not meant to be."
Okay, but then view 6 is the complete opposite, the humanistic or proactive view.
Right. And I want to be clear, we are just presenting this as one of the 8 frameworks from the text, but this view is rooted in a belief in human superiority.
They completely reject the idea of fate or gods.
Right. They reject any savior or divine being. Happiness is something that is self-created by forcefully reshaping nature.
There's that quote from the International in the text, right?
Yeah.
There's never been any savior, no gods or emperors. To create human happiness, it's entirely up to ourselves.
Exactly. It's a radically proactive stance.
So view 5 is peacefully floating down the lazy river of life, while view 6 is swimming upstream, building a dam and rerouting the water.
That's a perfect visual. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about psychological relief versus psychological burden.
How so?
Well, view 5 encourages passive acceptance. It totally eliminates personal anxiety about failure because, hey, it was meant to be.
Right, you're off the hook.
But view 6 is fiercely optimistic and proactive, sure, but it places the entire weight of human happiness squarely on human shoulders. If the dam breaks, it's your fault.
Man, that sounds exhausting. Which naturally leads us to the next section, the extremes of selflessness. Views 7 and 8.
Right, because if view 6 is about mastering the world, what about the people who want to give everything to the world or just reject it entirely?
View 7 is the altruistic view. This is utter selflessness.
The sole purpose here is to serve society and benefit sentient beings.
The quotes for this one are really intense. The silkworm, spinning till death, and the candle, burning till it turns to ashes.
Yeah, and to exhaust oneself in service until death. It's total sacrifice for the greater good.
Okay, but then we hit view 8, the immortality or Buddhahood view. And this one kind of threw me.
It's definitely a radical shift.
But because they look at the material world and say it's completely an illusion. The goal is supreme enlightenment and reaching heaven.
Right, they reject worldly attachments. No marriage, no kids, no concept of the greatest creator.
The text says, life is like a dream, and the 4 great elements are all empty. So what does this all mean? View 7 exhausts themselves giving back to the physical world, but View 8 looks at the exact same world and says, none of this is real anyway.
That's the profound divergence here. View 7 represents ultimate engagement. You are sacrificing yourself because you believe the suffering of others is real and matters.
You're all in.
But View 8 represents ultimate detachment. They aren't trying to fix the world at all. They're trying to escape the illusion of it entirely through spiritual practice.
So they're just unplugging the machine entirely.
Essentially, yes.
Okay, so we fractured human motivation into these 8 distinct, frankly often contradictory paths. Where does this leave us? Because the text gives us a teaser for a unifying framework at the very end.
Yes, the life view of Chanyuan celestials. The text concludes by introducing this concept of a holographic life view.
Which supposedly encompasses 8 fundamental principles. But I have to be honest, it's such a cliffhanger.
It really is.
It's like having 8 different apps open at once, draining your battery, and this holographic view is the master software meant to integrate them. But the text cuts off right as it introduces it.
I know, it leaves you wanting more. But this raises an important question. Why did Chauvin, the author, spend so much time meticulously laying out these 8 traditional views first?
Right, why not just jump to the master software?
Because to understand this holographic synthesis, one must first recognize the limitations, the blind spots, and the defining features of the 8 traditional paths humans have walked.
So you can't appreciate the fix until you know exactly how the system is broken.
Exactly. You have to see how each operating system eventually crashes when it hits an obstacle it wasn't coded to handle.
Man, that is so true. And as we wrap up, I really want you, listening right now, to reflect on this deep dive.
Think about the people in your life.
Yeah. Which of these 8 views do you recognize in your boss? Are they purely view 1, just looking at the bottom line? What about your partner? Or, most importantly, yourself? Have you shifted from one view to another over the course of your life as things have changed?
And I want to leave you with a final, maybe slightly uncomfortable philosophical question to mull over.
I love these. Lay it on us.
Did you consciously choose your current life view? Did you sit down and decide, I'm going to run this specific software? Or was it silently programmed into you by your upbringing, your culture, and your environment?
Oh, wow.
Because if it's the latter, are any of us truly living our own lives, or are we just flawlessly executing a pre-installed script?
That is a thought that will keep you up at night. Well, a huge thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the blueprints of your own mind, and we'll catch you next time.